Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today we want to talk a little bit about Equifax. Thomas, we've had a few days to look into it, actually a few weeks now, and I understand you have some interesting takes on what's really going on. So enlighten us, if you will.
Well, I don't know if it's anything to do with enlightenment, Betsy, but as we have been chatting, you and I, and also myself with the conclave, Equifax, we just laughed when Equifax just got a no-bid contract to work with the IRS to provide the IRS with verification, confirmation information about all Americans. Well, isn't that a coincidence? Because you reacted very strongly, Betsy. Tell us your reaction on that, Betsy.
Well, I'm beginning to wonder if anyone in the government reads actual news, because if they had read Truth News headlines, they would have seen that doing a deal with Equifax would probably not be a good idea at this point in time, since they lost or they were hacked or they just gave 143 million records out to the world.
Well, yes, exactly. And I have a very strong opinion on that, which I did not finish in our last broadcast when we were discussing Equifax. I forgot to say the most important thing. But for people who are just coming in on this, let me give kind of a brief summary of the whole thing. Equifax and what's the other one? Experian and TransUnion. Basically, they're corporate middlemen for our entire credit system, you see. And they basically have a monopoly. And all three of them do the same thing. And what they do is they are economic spies. Basically, they're terrorists. They want to make sure that if you've been bad with your money, that you don't get no more money. Essentially, putting it into street language. So they determine your credit. Well, even if they have bad information, your credit number is still what is accessed by anyone who wants to, sell you something that they need to find out if you're have good credit. So what happened was there's a company called Mandiant. Now, what's most interesting is the things that I found out recently. Mandiant goes back to working with Equifax for some years, but they have been bought by a company called FireEye. Mandiant is ran by Kevin Mandia, and FireEye is ran by a Pakistani national whose name is Ashir Aziz, I believe. Well, we said before, and we even made a couple predictions, and by golly, the predictions have come true within a few days. So it is pretty amazing sometimes when we listen to what we are deriving from sheer logic by reason and then making projections of what that would be. There's a name for that, and we discussed that in a recent talk when we were talking about Google Venture buying into a company called, what's it called?
It was called Recorded Future.
Recorded Future.
Mm-hmm.
They analyze data to try to determine what the future is. Well, so do we, but we just do it on a simple, logical, human basis, not using the excuse of an artificial intelligence behind us.
Well, I did want to bring up, in our last audio, we discussed this as being perhaps a setup for the coming credit collapse. So that if it happens, that perhaps this credit breach in some way plays into it by saying that, well, okay, since everybody's credit has been breached, we need to go to a new system. And that was what we were reporting on a few days ago. And then I just read in the news where Donald Trump has said that the Social Security number is really not a good system. It wasn't supposed to be a universal identifier, but it certainly has become that. And perhaps maybe there's something in the blockchain technology that would be better to be used to preserve and protect our identities. So I don't see this Equifax hack or breach being something isolated. I really see it as part of a bigger plan of transitioning into this new finance system.
I think you're right, and you being an economist have a better handle on that than I myself do. But I think you're right. When that happened, everyone was told to please freeze your credit. Okay, if you just froze your credit, then you can't buy anything. Doesn't that affect the economy?
Absolutely.
They were also told that Equifax is not secure, never was secure. They never told you it was secure. You have to buy extra protection for it to be secure. So they shuffled everybody over to Total ID, which is another one of their companies, which they're not admitting is, but they've owned that company for 4 years. And basically what they said is, we are not solvent anymore. We let every single American adult's information out through a breach, not through a hack. And that I can describe the breach again in a short form in just a second. But they said they were hacked, and a company called Mandiant came in and said it was the North Koreans. That is a lie. We'll describe why that's a lie in just a minute. But the point is that Equifax, their job is to steal your information, make sure that they know more about you than you know. You may do things economically that they know that you don't. They hold it over your head. Your credit number is everything if you want to buy a house or you want to do business. So when they told you to put a freeze on Equifax, you couldn't get through on the telephone line. Still can't. You can't actually put a freeze.
But that's not going to really do the job, because you still have other credit agencies that have all that information.
Precisely. That's why I was just going to say you can't put a freeze on your credit, because the other two companies have the same information. They vie with each other, and they're in competition with each other, and the ones who get the most information are the most valuable to the government. So what really happened?
Oh, I know. They're putting us all in a box.
Correct.
It's a prison. It's a credit prison. You're not going to be able to get credit without the government giving you approval. And if you misbehave, maybe you put something on YouTube that they don't approve of, they can yank your chains from that credit end.
Before we can go to a non-fiat, non-physical currency system, it has to be digitized so that they know everything about you. That's the reason that Equifax just got, again, and this is what people don't realize, this isn't the first time Equifax has had a contract with the IRS to give them all the information that they have in economic terrorism found out about you and use against you. So why are people upset? Because what a joke. The company that just got breached, hacked by the North Koreans, that's a lie, just got breached, and basically every piece of valuable information about Americans just got stolen from them. And they say that it happened over a 6-month period after Mandiant came in. Kevin Mandiant came in, and his company Mandiant came in and said, oh, you've been hacked by the North Koreans, and we're now going to put our proprietary system in here to watch your system and make sure that you're not hacked anymore, and make sure that you have virus protection that stops this. It didn't stop it, because the system itself was flawed, because it needed an update, which Mandiant told them not to put into the system. Well, why would the company coming in that's supposed to be it was the only, and still is the only, forensic information technology company that was working with these servers and working with this information. Even the government doesn't have access to it at this point, though they have multiple investigations going on, supposedly. So what was it that Mandiant was doing? Mandiant came in, and they knew from the beginning this was going to be just like the DNC. It was going to be a cover for what they were really doing. So they say that over 6 months that the North Koreans went in and they put in these botnets that went to all their different systems and collected it all out, and then slowly squeezed it out so nobody saw it leaving, and basically stole all their valuable information they have. And then Mandiant came in after they put their proprietary system on to stop that from happening, and said, oh my, oh look, there's been a complete breach. And then what did Mandiant do? Still nothing. And then what did the people who owned the company? They leveraged $1.8 million on the stock market so that when they announced that this happened, they made a killing by buying short on their own company. So this is standard operating procedure. This is the way that it always goes down. Look at the people who bought short for Las Vegas. Look at the people who bought short for Las Vegas, and you'll know who it was that perpetrated the crime. Same thing with Mandiant. Look who took all the money they had and invested it in their company going bust because they had insider trading information to know that it was going to go bust. Nobody wants to be with Equifax anymore, so they've all gone over and been told that Total ID is a separate company.
But it still doesn't take care of the problem that all of your personal information is out there now. It doesn't really matter who is going to take over and be the credit agency from this point on. It's all been breached.
Oh, it's completely breached. And as we said, because we predicted, because we could see right through the fact that when you have one IT company that comes in and makes these determinations on their own, and you know that that company's already crooked, and I'll tell you why they're crooked in just a moment, but You know they're crooked, and they make these crooked reports, and then they say they protect your computers, but they don't. It's a setup. That information wasn't breached. It was sold.
And who did they sell it to?
To the other two companies.
Okay. Well, why would the other two companies want it? They have that information.
They don't have it all.
All right.
Now, wait a second. Now, they also held it there to say, we have this here in one big breached file. And then what do they get? A no-bid contract to get that exact information by the IRS. Why? Because the IRS is so incompetent that they can't even confirm that the people that they're working with have a job or what their credit is or whether they make their payments. So the government has basically now openly, again for the second time, gone to Equifax and say the IRS is going to have all the credit information on you. So when we come after you or when we red flag you or when we audit you, we have everything.
Yes.
But who does that go to? We said who it goes to. No one else is saying this. It went to Google's mother company, Alphabet, because Alphabet is creating the box you just described. It's going to be your credit box. It's going to be your money box. It's going to be the information box that is connected to the chip in your hand or the barcode on your hand. It doesn't matter. We're going to a currency-free society. It will all be digits. And at the point that they say, yes, yesterday you had $100 million in your account, but the next day there's nothing. And by the way, there's nothing you can do about it because as we know, when there's an IT glitch, nobody ever gets blamed, nobody ever gets prosecuted, and there's not a darn thing you can do about the fact that Kevin Mandian, who now runs FireEye, came in and said, oh gee, there's been a problem. There's nothing you can do, folks. When your computer goes down and your IT guy says, oh, you have to throw it in the lake, well, really, do you know anything more about that computer that could fix it? We are held hostage by information technology people. Now, FireEye was run by a Pakistani. At the very time that they say Mandiant was working with Equifax, there was no Mandiant.
Well, wait a minute.
There was only FireEye.
Okay.
FireEye had bought Mandiant for $1 billion, and now that price is being contested because they say that the valuation of it was false.
Pakistani. Where have I heard that before? We've got a spy ring operating in Washington, D.C. by some Pakistanis. What are all these Pakistanis doing? And why are we just so, just giving them everything?
And as I've said before, if you want to see a fake government shill company, notice that when it starts up, it's nothing, and then it's valuated at billions. Well, Mandiant had a valuation of, much, much less than $1 billion, but it sold for $1 billion. So FireEye came in and bought it for $1 billion, and now they're contesting the fact that was a fake number. Well, this is what always happens. This is why Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, all of them, the fake numbers, folks, those numbers aren't real. Those are bankers who are giving false valuation on companies they're invested in. So Mandiant really does not have a good record, and but the owner of FireEye is getting out of the business. He's selling FireEye. So now when they say Mandiant, they blame Equifax on Mandiant, but Mandiant hasn't existed for years. FireEye owns Mandiant. That's just a ploy to blame it on a company that is now dead. They do this all the time.
With the whole intent being that all this is getting rolled up to Google, to Alphabet.
Yes, but sold to Alphabet. But Alphabet
it's
is
going to be washed a couple of times before the sale.
Alphabet is a government company. Alphabet is an In-Q-Tel company.
I am so tired of all of the centralization. This experiment on centralization is clearly not working for any of us and the human population on the world. We need to stop it in its tracks. If you're hearing my voice, you need to do what you can to demand that we start breaking this stuff down and we get into a more decentralized world. Break it down by the locals. We want our state rights enforced. We want the Constitution enforced. We want our borders enforced. We are tired. The centralization of the world has failed.
Absolutely. And it's become lawlessness because once you're centralized...
Well, the people at the top, they're the ones...
That's right.
We are on a planet that has been imprisoned by these central bankers.
Yes, and boy, can we say so much about this.
I'm very upset because I see the next generation, Thomas, coming up. You know, our children, their friends, they haven't a clue of what's going on. They're going to wind up being stamped on their hand. They would love to pay for everything through their iPhone. They don't understand why in the world we would carry cash, right? They are so clueless. They're going to walk right into this trap.
Absolutely, because they think it's an advancement. It's a scientific advancement. All scientific advancements are good. It doesn't matter. Think for a second. Really? You're mixing a human and a pig together, their DNA, and creating a pig human? Who approved that? And the centralization is right. Every time they centralize these things into a computer, the corruption goes absolutely off the charts because, for instance, all mortgages are held basically, or 89% of private homes and 89% of all mortgages in America are held in the MERS system, one computer. When they sold it, they sold this company that was in one house and had 4 employees for, I think, over $4 billion, if I'm not mistaken. It was one computer. One computer. Then who owns it? The company that owns the New York Stock Exchange, which is all controlled by one computer called the DTCC. It's the clearinghouse for all exchanges on the New York Stock Exchange. No exchange goes down without this one computer saying yes or no in the order that it says yes or no. That's fake. That's a centralized computer that is easy to manipulate now, isn't it? One computer. So they want the IRS that will probably get out of the IRS. There won't be any more IRS. They'll just simply take your money from your account. You won't file any IRS form. When you were given your Social Security number illegally, it was so that you could be assigned the war debt. And that's why, as you said, Social Security is illegal. Will we go to blockchain?
Well, I said the number.
Well, no, the establishment of the Social Security Administration is illegal. You put a tax on us for war
no,
debt?
That's not what we were told. We were told that it would be to save for our retirement and the government would have a special place to keep that money. And pensioners are waking up now. They're seeing their private and public pensions are nothing but Ponzi schemes, and they're getting ready to wake up to the biggest Ponzi scheme of them all, and that is Social Security.
Yes, and if they want to go with a one-payer system for medical, then you're basically going to have Social Security that is completely inept. You can't get someone on the phone from the Social Security Administration if your life depended upon it. That's why so many old people die. And I speak from direct experience. Medicare and Medicaid is forced on you. You don't have a choice in many of these cases. And then it stops you from getting other medical insurance. And if you get other medical insurance, then you're dropped off of Social Security disability or Social Security insurance. They have you coming and going. Anyone who wants to be on a universal Medicare, Medicaid system has obviously never been on them. Go ask any old people who were on them.
Okay, so it's a crazy... I don't want to run too long on this, Thomas.
Let's go back to Equifax. Here's the big point. Here's the punchline.
Right.
Though you're so good to point out that over-centralization. Equifax is an over-centralization of this information, which is now directly linked to the IRS, directly linked. So any mistakes at Equifax, how many mistakes has Equifax made? They've been sued for making such horrible mistakes it's ruined people's lives. That's now going to directly connect to the IRS, and the IRS is going to connect it to Alphabet. Alphabet had to pay, the IRS had to pay, and TransUnion and Experian had to pay for what was breached. That's what they do. They gather the information to sell it. And I told everyone, they're going to sell this information. Mark my words. Within days now, look at it. Now, here's the punchline, and then we can stop on Experian. Equifax. This is all a charade that's going on with the Congress, talking to the person there representing FireEye. Why? Because they lied and said it was Mandiant. There is no Mandiant. Mandiant's dead. It's been dead for years. There's only a FireEye. FireEye and the purchase of Mandiant previously is being questioned by the federal government because it was overvalued, and now FireEye is up for sale and it's being overvalued. And guess what happened to the Pakistani national, who was the top dog, who came in and agreed that CrowdStrike was right about their determination with the
I don't know.
DNC.
Is he down at the Starbucks having coffee with his other Pakistani friend, Awan?
Yes, they probably live in the same neighborhood in Pakistan. Imran Awan, of course, was trying to get there. He'd already sent his whole family to Pakistan. No, he is close, though. He is being given billions of dollars for a fake company that just comes in and makes these stupid announcements of who it is that supposedly hacked somebody, and then they don't even stop the hacking. And they attribute it to whoever they feel like attributing it to, this time to the North Koreans, because the North Koreans are our enemy now. So he is taking his money, and get ready for this. No collusion here. He's going to Pakistan to open his own broadcasting network company, television network. He has that much money. In other words, the man who was working for the CIA here in fake cyber intelligence was overpaid for his company, bought another company that came in and is going to take the responsibility for FireEye. It was FireEye who went into Equifax. It wasn't Mandiant. That's a lie. So FireEye is the guy's packing it up, taking his money, already gone, moved to Pakistan, and he's going to open a television network, which is a propaganda tool for the Board of Broadcasting Governors. Why? Because all cyber warfare is controlled by the Board of Broadcasting Governors. Because why? Everything on the internet is a broadcast. So the very people are sending him, who've been covering for him as one of their agents here, because look at what he does and what he's done in the past. It's all a fraud, just like CrowdStrike. That's why CrowdStrike is not being heard from anymore. It will dissolve and become another company. That's why Mandiant did the same thing. That's why McAfee's company before McAfee was... Anyway, they all work together. Don't forget that. These crowds, Dmitry Alperovich worked with McAfee. McAfee worked with the CIA and the NSA. He admits that on public television. He says nothing is guarded. There's no such thing as being guarded from viruses. No such thing. Every single thing you do on the internet is being surveilled. And if you don't think so, you're a fool. He said this many, many times. He's the only one who's come out and told the truth. But the people who worked for him still worked for the NSA, CIA with these shill companies. And that's who comes in and waves a magic wand and says it was the Russians. It was the Chinese. It was the North Koreans. But they seldom ever say it's the Pakistanis, even though often it is the Pakistanis, like Imran Awan's Pakistani espionage of the Congress. So he is being paid off overtly by the bankers to go to Pakistan and become a propaganda network. He's an American, supposedly. He was a Pakistani, came here, and just read his biography. You'll be shocked. It's a lie. And you can see that he was simply put into this position and doesn't even know what he's doing. And that's the reason he's getting out of being the top cyber warfare analyst in the world, one of the top 5 that Obama worked with exclusively, to opening a television network.
Look, there is a solution to this, and this is that the people of the United States, we need to wake up, and we need to get Google in our hands. We need to claim it as property of the people, and we need to get it out of the hands of whoever's behind running this network. That it goes beyond U.S. borders. It's a worldwide network. We own it. It is our taxpayer money, Thomas, that went to develop the technology that Google now uses against us.
Yes, but they try to fake you out and tell you that a guy at CERN developed the World Wide Web, but it was the American money that paid for that man's job that was supposed to be working on a collider, but instead he developed the way that the normal person could get onto the World Wide Web so that they could control you as they had effectively controlled the others who were on DARPANet, which is what the internet started with, and then it became internet. So you were so right. We need to claim back InQtel's and DARPA's
and Facebook and anyone who received taxpayer money to develop their technology. I consider myself an investor, and everyone out there, you ought to consider yourself as investors too. And we need to take these companies back.
That's right.